This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rapin, and with me this week are two fantastic human beings, Kate Scotchless.
Hello.
And Nick White.
Hey.
Thank you both for joining me this week. I'm extra excited because I cannot believe that this is the 250th episode of I Read Comic Books. Can you... What?
It's not. I think you've been out of the cycle for too long, Mike. That was
Nick. What are you talking about?
Look,
Nick,
maybe getting to record episodes where we just ate snacks all the time, sort of just like threw you for a loop and whatnot. But the 250 was last week.
Okay.
You weren't even around.
Hold on. Are you kidding me right now?
I mean, usually I'm the one who can't count, but it appears this time it's you.
Son of a biscuit. Okay, this is episode 251. Ignore me. Time is meaningless. Now I'm all thrown off. I guess I'm completely crestfallen.
It can be 250 in your heart, Mike.
This is 200. Yeah, this is 250 in my heart. Okay.
I used to only set aside the column for how do they work to magnets, but we can add numbers if that's.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like I'm at the point in this show where I need to just start getting tattoos of like the episode numbers so that I can remember what the last one recorded was, and then we'll factor in bonus episodes and all that other stuff. And I don't even know what we'll do about Patreon episodes. I think I just got to start getting tattoos, folks. That's what's going to happen.
You just need one of those concrete walls with a piece of chalk that you just, keep a tally. Keep a tally.
I'm just going to end up looking like
bedroom
Victor
wall.
Zsasz. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to paint like the entire wall of my bedroom with the number of episodes, or with that type of paint that you can draw chalk on. And or I'm just going to end up looking like Victor Zsasz. I don't know.
There we go.
Okay. This is episode 251. Let me ask the question I ask every single week then, which apparently I didn't last week because Paul was on the episode and I forgot. How have you been?
Paul was amazing.
Yeah, he was. I'm sure he was amazing. Paul's always amazing. All right, you guys are just making me feel bad.
Anyway, shut up. No.
Let me ask the question I have to ask every single week, which is how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's start with you, Nick.
Things have been okay. Things have been busy. Work's been definitely keeping me pretty busy, which that's fine. There's not a whole lot let me try that again. There's not a whole lot else out there for me to do. So, in terms of what I've been reading, unsurprisingly, and I think maybe some of our fellow readers have been doing the same, and if you haven't, I can definitely make some suggestions. I've definitely been leaning more towards low intensity, low stakes comics. I've also been leaning towards anything that does not in any or in most ways, shapes, or forms reflect or reproduce the current situation that we sit in. Mm-hmm. On whatever sociopolitical landscape we're talking about. So I'm talking about like those IDW Disney comics that they put out a couple years ago. I think some of them are still running. So like it's a lot of the Disney European comics that were super, super popular in like the 60s and 70s over there. Many of which...
God, you and Kara every week.
Yeah, and so like this is, for many of these, this is the first time they've been translated into English. This is the first time they've been sort of imported to America. So it's just really good low stakes stuff, like where you wonder whether or not like the main character is ever going to choose to wear pants, in terms of like Donald Duck, or in the terms of like Uncle Scrooge. You're like, geez, I wonder if like this obscenely wealthy person might find himself slightly less wealthy. That's concerning. So these
is that what makes Uncle Scrooge comics interesting? That like, oh no, he went from a billionaire to a slightly less billionaire.
Oh no, he has 0.8 less assets than 0.8% less assets than last issue. This is concerning. Yeah, actually there's a really fun page at the back of the Uncle Scrooge comic where you actually get to run the numbers on his finances and figure out like where he stands at the end of the month.
Oh Lord.
So you just
math.
Yeah, there's like 3 pages for deductions. It doesn't take that long. Some people on the subreddits are like, hey, I can't get the numbers right. And then there's like 30 or 40 posts of other people helping you do Uncle Scrooge's taxes. So it's no, I'm just kidding. This is all not real.
But why not? Why not? You know,
Why not?
Come on,
Yeah.
Disney.
Yeah, no, there's just a little submission form, you know, in a throwback to 90s comics where you get to mail in Uncle Scrooge's taxes, and whoever gets closest enough gets like
it's the no prize.
It's the 90s, so maybe you got like, you know, like $1,000, which is like $1 million by today's standard. We all know about inflation, so I don't need to explain.
I mean, you're reading Uncle Scrooge comics, so you must know about inflation.
You're reading Uncle Scrooge comics, you're probably on TurboTax every day already, so it's fine. Beyond that, I also did read Fallen World #1. I know maybe some Valiant fans out there, or people who even just sort of have a superficial understanding of comics are going, Nick, didn't that come out last year / and or over a year ago? And that's true. Let's do credits first. It's written by Dan Abnett, art by Adam Polina. I best know him for drawing Secret Weapons #0. Unfortunately, my least favorite Valiant colorist is on this book, Ulysses Areola. Sorry, I just don't like his color palette. So this is basically a continuation of 4001 AD, which is the summer event that Matt Kindt did back in, I want to say, the summer of 2016. It also kind of follows up on the book Rye, which was also a Matt Kindt title, also drawn by Clayton Crean, and I believe that was started in 2014. I'm getting to this book kind of late because, obviously, for those people who listen to the show, you know that I really haven't loved what Valiant's done within the past 2 years, basically. Most of their books, right?
All the salt, listeners.
Yeah. So, like, I will try to, for those who have heard this before, give the very truncated version of this, which is just, right now, it honestly feels like most of these books are just ignoring past events, soft resetting. Characters really aren't behaving like they used to. Books seem to be super insular in terms of interacting with other books. And I know some people out there are saying, like, oh, this is Nick, on the front porch in his rocking chair, set in his ways, yelling at people, kicking their soccer ball onto his front lawn. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, I would say, like, I get that concern. I would say if what I was seeing was being done for creative or artistic reasons, or I felt it was being done for creative or artistic reasons, I wouldn't have a problem. It's just that for me, what I'm seeing is basically what I'm understanding to be a set of calculated decisions that are happening after the Bloodshot movie was Sony. The Harbinger movie is now Paramount. And that basically was the writing on the wall that it looks like Valiant is not going to be able to do a shared cinematic universe. And so it looks like a lot of the books that are following that are super insular, with the idea that they're IP farming with the goal of not having, or the fact that they can't have, a shared cinematic universe.
Or they're just trying to get people that watch those movies to read the comics, and they don't want to be confused by all these
don't ruin this for
time traveling family members and robots in space.
Hear me out. What if they're trying to get more readers?
I'm not interested in that.
What if they're trying to sell more comics?
Yeah. I mean, that would be great. I think they used to have
give me 7 covers, then I'll buy more comics.
Yeah, like something is not working, because I believe they used to have like a 1.3 market share, and they're down to 0.7%. So,
it is a recession.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sure someone at Valiant is saying, Nick, like, those books have been in the pipes for months and months, and it's not a decision. This is not the cause and effect relationship you're making it into. That's fine. Anyway, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, because that would be great things for Valiant and probably better reading for me. In terms of Fallen World, if you liked what Valiant was doing a couple years ago, if you liked the interplay between universes, the continuity between events, if you enjoyed a lot of those things and sort of books that were ideal for new readers, but also simultaneously rewarding for people who had been invested for months or years, I think it's a great sci-fi book. I love Paulina's take on Rye. I think it's fantastic. I plan to finish this and then move on to the actual Rye book, and we'll see what that's like, which is, gosh, I want to say that's also Abnett, but with Juan Jose Reap on art. So, yeah. That's
all right.
That's what I've been reading, and I would love for Valiant to prove me wrong on this, but right now I'm not really liking a lot of what I'm seeing coming out of Valiant right now, and their obsession with getting Big Two creators that have just been, sitting in the wings at Big Two Books forever. Brett Booth, that just what happened to the Moneyball approach, where it was like finding underrated and undervalued and misutilized creators instead of just yearning for these like old Big Two names. I
think an entire executive handover and change in ownership of the company, maybe.
Yeah, it could be the fact that somebody 2 years ago basically got a majority stake in Valiant. Yeah, it might be related to that.
Could be.
Anyway, I'm not mad, and I definitely didn't go on for 7 minutes, so you can put my gold star in the mail, Mike, please.
You got it.
Thank you.
Kate, what about you? How have you been? How have comics been?
I have been stressed. I mean, there's like a pandemic and everything, but my university, like so many others, was doing this will they, won't they thing where they're like, I mean, are we going to open all the dorms with like thousands of kids per dorm? Like, maybe. I don't know. And then very last minute, after kids had already started to move in, the news reports keep saying that at least they did it before kids started moving in. And that is not true. There were had already been a move-in weekend. They had them like staggered out. So some kids were moving in really early. But anyway, Michigan State did officially say, okay, never mind. We're going to go totally online. Notre Dame is like on fire right now. And like, we're pretty sure everyone at UNC is dead. So like, we're going to go online. So there was that. I was hoping that would make a lot fewer people move to East Lansing right now, so that there's like fewer plague rats running around bringing all their diseases from wherever they move from.
Sure.
Specifically one disease that I'm particularly worried about, but it turns out we're still overrun by U-Hauls right now, so that's concerning. But anyway, so I've been stressed with that. Also, I'm doing my qualifying exams at the moment.
Okay. Which
is like we're going to give you a test, and like no pressure, but if you fail, you are out of the program. So it is one of those fun hurdles you jump through in a PhD. It depends on your school and department for what exactly it is. But in computer science at my school, it is, we're going to assign you a thesis topic. You're going to write us a thesis paper on it. We're also going to give you some questions, topic areas that are very broad, that we're going to be able to ask you an oral exam on, as well as a big presentation of your thesis. So you have like a committee and you write your thesis, turn it into them, do an oral exam with them where they drill you with questions, and then they can pass you or fail you. And if you fail, you're out with the master's degree, which would be a real bummer because I already have one of those.
Right.
It was like extra suck. And if you can also like pass with like reservations where they are like, well, you need to take some extra classes, but otherwise you can stay, or you can like just pass, which is what we want. So doing that right now, working on this thesis. The thing about being assigned a thesis is it's not per se a topic you want to do a whole big thesis on. So it's fine. I mean, just getting it done, but that deadline is approaching. So I've been stressed. So I've been reading. I was like, this is the perfect topic that we're doing this week about books for your younger self, because it was a really good excuse to every night be reading books that I thought my younger self would like very comforting books.
Yeah.
So I have actually read a lot of comics, but they're all books I'm going to talk about later, because every single one I was like, yes, younger self, yes, let's go. So the only one I'm going to talk about right now is actually a listen. So way back when the Nimona audio drama went on sale for a day for $1.99. And I was like, that sounds interesting. I mean, I love that OGN. So for $1.99, sure, I'll see what this is about. And I do like audio dramas in general. Like, I have really been enjoying listening to the BBC's, like the original radio dramas of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And which notably was written for that as like the original, which I think helps, because the Nimona audio drama was written by Noelle Stevenson, but obviously it's an adaptation of the OGN, which came first.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of audio quality, like, it's full cast performed by so many people that I'm not going to go through all their names, but they're fantastic. There's not a single weak person in the link. There's original music by Lauren Tulian. It's a fun last name. But like full sound effects, very high quality. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes. But I don't think if this was my first time coming to it, which of course is hard to gauge because it's not, but I don't think I would have been as emotionally invested in Nimona and Blackheart's friendship, because so much of that is their physical dynamic with one another and the expressiveness that Noelle Stevenson does with the art in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I would have been invested in it. Like, Nimona is much cuter in the book to me than when it's just audio, maybe in part because you just have an adult woman's voice for her versus ever seeing her as, I don't know, like I definitely felt she was much younger than Blackheart in the book, so they had much more of that like pseudo daughter, pseudo dad vibe to me in the book, which I didn't get much of at all in the audio drama. And then which, like, a lot of the words are identical, so it's hard. Like, they basically make it work with the same speech, with having like a voiceover narrator for a lot of it, telling you, describing the scene.
Right.
So the in terms of words, it's the same. So I think a lot of that was like made me appreciate the art a lot more. The other thing is, I'm not sure that I would have understood the Lord Ballister Blackheart and Sir Ambrosius Goldenloin backstory without having read the OGN beforehand. That was much fuzzier in terms of why Goldenloin betrayed Blackheart and what all was happening there, and it was like a romantic thing. Unless I'm crazy, it was a romantic thing in the OGN, right?
I took it to be that way. Like, they were kind of spurned lovers, but like that's
I had too in my memory.
Maybe that's just us inserting our own AU into the story.
Possible, but seems unlikely with Stevenson as the writer.
Exactly. I agree.
I was like waiting for that in the audio, and I'm not sure that I would have caught it. It's like kind of there, but I'm not sure that I would have caught it. So those were the big differences to me. If you like Nimona, I would still recommend listening to this if you can get it inexpensively. I don't know that I would use a full cost audible like credit on it. Mostly because it's 2 hours. Like, get yourself a Brandon Sanderson doorstopper of a 50-hour book. But anyway, especially if you like the stuff like the BBC's Hitchhiker's Guide, it's fun. Radio dramas are fun to me. So how about you, Mike?
Well, I have been pretty good. I was having a very stressful handful of weeks before last week, and then I took a week off from work, like a planned vacation. Kelly and I had we were planning at the beginning of this year to go to North Carolina and go sit on a beach for a week, and then the world decided to stop. And so instead, she and I rented an Airbnb up in the kind of this small town of New York, in New York State. And we just kind of went up there and stayed for 3 days and just stayed inside, ordered out dinner every night, and just didn't do anything, which is basically all we wanted to do. We could have stayed at home, but I had this Airbnb credit that because I had canceled an Airbnb earlier this year because of the whole pandemic, and the Airbnb was like, hey, instead of refunding you, what if we just didn't take a service charge and gave you all this as a credit? And it was $600-700, and I was like, sure, that's more than I was going to pay for this Airbnb. And so we used some of that credit to go up and just stay for a weekend. And it was mostly just incredibly relaxing to just not have to worry about anything and not be at home and not have to be in a big city. And so, yeah, I had a very nice, relaxing week that was really needed because my anxiety was really getting to me before that. But in that week of staying, I read a lot of comic books. Mostly I read One Piece, but I did sit down and read Love on the Other Side. This is by Nagabe. This is from Seven Seas, the publisher, also the creator of the series The Girl from the Other Side, Sula Run, which is a really dark but also incredibly heartwarming story about a little girl who is trapped on the, quote, other side of the big like world. In that there's like this medieval town that where everybody lives on the inside, and then there's the other side of the wall where all of these outsiders live, and they corrupt people, and no one knows what it is, and it's really mysterious. But it's about this outsider who takes care of this little girl, and it's very, very charming. Like, it's probably one of the most interesting manga I have ever read. I highly recommend it to everybody who wants to see some very beautiful work done with black ink. I know I've talked about it on the show, but anyways, Love on the Other Side, completely unrelated to the series Girl from the Other Side. It just happens to have a similar name. It's a collection of short stories by Nagabe that features anthropomorphological animals and humans being in love. That's a really hard word for my mouth to say. So you get like a story about a bat who is a vampire and has no reflection that thinks they're a human, and this woman who is in love with this bat. And I was like, oh, this is kind of creepy vampire stuff. It's like, no, this vampire thought that they were unlovable, and this woman showed up and is madly in love with them, and it's them kind of accepting that love from somebody. And there's like, it's just all little stories that are kind of creepy but also really heartwarming. Like, Nagabe has this knack for really riding that line of like, this is kind of creepy but also I find this really charming. So I think this definitely isn't for everybody. I think if you're kind of weirded out by the like idea of, I don't want to say weirded out by furries, because that's I feel like that's insulting, and I don't want to be like that. But if you're not on board for like humanized animals, like being in love with humans and things like that, maybe this isn't for you. But I think that this is a fantastic book. It was a really easy read. I really enjoyed every single story. They were the perfect length. And again, it's all just kind of heartwarming stories about people being in love, and it's not like physical love. It is just like the idea of a father and a daughter, or the idea of, you know, someone who doesn't think they're deserving of love finding love in the strangest place. And yeah, so I think I want to read everything by this creator. I know that I need to get down and sit down and read the Wise Beasts of Wizarding Wisdoms that Nagabe also did. It's a BL kind of story. The summary is: deep in the forest lies a mysterious school of magic, wisdoms and institutions attended by beastmen of all kinds. These studious fantasy creatures have come to live, learn, and perhaps even fall in love in this enchanting space. In this collection of BL stories by master mangaka Nagabe, follow the beauty and surprising humor of magical beasts with human hearts. Because, you know what? This, I don't know what it is. This creator has a very specific type of comic that she wants to make, and I'm here for it every single time. So I need to read that one. But Love on the Other Side, I highly would recommend that if you want just an interesting collection of short stories that isn't like a Junji Ito horror or your typical shonen like one shot. I think this is really, really good. The other book I want to talk about is Undone by Blood, numbers 4 and 5. This is by Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler with art by Sammy Cavella. This is from Aftershock Comics, and I think I've talked about this series on the show as well. But it's a story that takes place in the early 70s. Our main character, Ethel Grady Lane, returns to her hometown of Sweetheart, Arizona, with one thing on her mind: killing the man who murdered her family. This is a very serious book in comparison to Love on the Other Side. But man, if you're looking for a Western, like, this book hits that. I know it takes place in the 70s, but it's paralleled with a story that is like from a prose book in the world of the comic that is a Western, and you can see like this parallel story being told in the book, as well as with Ethel's story as she tries to figure out who the person was that murdered her family. And I will say, with the last 2 issues, things get incredibly intense very fast, and then it ends. And this first book, this first 5 issues is like the first quote unquote story in this, I guess, ongoing series that's going to happen, of maybe focusing on different characters or something. I feel like Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler, great team of writers. I'm hoping that they'll turn this into like a criminal style story, like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Criminal, where it's just different stories that kind of take place in the same universe. I think this has the potential for that. But yeah, if you're looking for like a good Western revenge story, there's anger, violence, and justice all in 5 issues. And I think this is going to be a really good read in a collection if you're looking for that. So
anger and violence is really all I want ever at all times.
Yeah, I think you would. I think you would like this.
You know me. That is my vibe.
Yeah, I think you would dig this. Maybe not, but yeah. Let's move on. We're running really long here, so let's talk about our comic picks really quick. Comics are coming out on August 26th, 2020. What are you guys excited for this week? I'm going to jump over to you, Kate.
I'm excited for Kodi Volume 1 by Jared Cullum. This is an IDW book for all ages that looks exactly up my comfort read alley right now, where it's a story of friendship between a bear and a little girl. The girl, Katya, goes to spend the summer up in Alaska and becomes great friends with this bear, obviously Kodiak bear. And then she returns home to Seattle, and the bear has to do what it takes to reunite with his fragile human friend.
Aww.
And the cover art is all that I was able to find, but it looked really sweet and colorful and happy and relaxing. So I'm here for this. Let's go on a journey as a bear through the world to find our friend.
I love it. I just saw the cover for it, and it looks beautiful.
Doesn't it look nice?
It looks very beautiful.
Right there, right in the feels.
Absolutely. Nick, what about you? What are you excited for this week?
So for me this week, my pick has definitely got to be Black Magick number 13. Probably a fitting number for a book about witchcraft and whatnot to land upon as an issue number. I think probably the biggest thing for me that I'm just absolutely freaking shocked about, there's not a whole lot I have to say, but honestly, I'm not only surprised that this book is actually it's still a thing, but I'm more shocked that apparently it was still a thing last month.
Yeah.
I guess that just goes to show with how just wild and weird things have been with what's going on, just how out of the loop I am when it comes to weekly releases. And I'm just so happy to find out that it's back, considering issue 11 came out in March of 2018.
Right.
Most books don't take a hiatus of 2 years and 4 months and come back. That just
unless you're heathen.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, I guess apparently, like, a lot of this isn't actually. A lot of it is actually Rucka deliberately delaying things so that Scott had enough time to draw a great amount of the arc before issues started coming out. So,
yeah.
I guess Scott was also moving in the middle of this arc. So, yeah. And again, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care why, the book's delayed. I'm just happy that it's back. And, just, I guess, one positive about Image Comics, because you wouldn't have been able to tell DC, can you just give me 2.5 years, please?
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, I also had that book as my pick, but because I was just as shocked that issue 12 came out. Like, in my mind, I was like, is this book done? Are they moving it to graphic novel? Because I don't think that there was any talk about it getting canceled. I think it was just extreme delay. But you know what? I'd rather have 8 months off, 6 months on than having sporadic issues kind of come out whenever, because it's really hard to track and keep up on those kinds of stories. So hopefully this means that books will just come out through this arc at a regular pace, and we'll have a couple months off. I mean, I would much rather do that as a reader, but
yeah.
My pick for this week, other than Black Magick, was Hellions number 3. This is by Zeb Wells, Steven Segovia on art, David Curiel on colors, and Ariana Maher on letters. I will be completely honest here. This is one of those X-Men books that I was certain I was not going to like when it came out. It is full of B, C, D list X-Men characters that I have really no context on. But there's something about these like bad quote unquote mutants that is extremely fun. I mean, the team is wild, right? It's Havoc, Orphan Maker, Nanny, Wild Child, Empath, Scalp Hunter, and Psylocke, aka Quanon.
You could those could all not be X-Men, and I wouldn't know the difference.
Listen. As someone who watched the Suicide Squad roll call video from DC Fandom yesterday, like watching that, right? It's the same exact thing. I was like, "What? What? Who are these? There's a polka dot man. What the fuck is happening?" So, like, that's exactly what this team is, and I was so just like, I don't think I'm gonna be into this at all. It's really weird, but I forgot
X-Men isn't in the title. There isn't even an X in the title. Those are my two criteria. My name is Mike Rapin. This is how you become an X-Men book.
Typically, yes. I mean, you are 100% right. I mean, the thing is, like, I forget that Zeb Wells is a very deep diving writer. Like he likes to go into the weird stuff and like the side characters and stuff. He did that on his run of Spider-Man way back in the day when they were doing 3 Spider-Man books a month, back when I was reading Amazing Spider-Man. And I always enjoyed his issues. I know he did stuff for New Mutants for a while that I don't remember reading. I think I just wasn't reading a New Mutants book at the time, but nonetheless, he's a pretty talented writer, and really, I like this book. I like this book a lot. Like, I in my head, I'm wondering, is this why people like the Suicide Squad comics? Do I like Suicide Squad? Is that what I have to read now? I mean, and like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to make that like 1-to-1 comparison because I don't think that it's actually right. But this book is like dark and weird, and it's funny when every single character is an edgelord. And somehow the book is very fun. Like, and like we've got Orphan Maker and Nanny, which are like this duo, like robot mutant and then like another robot mutant, and they want to take care of you. And Havoc is like, but I'm a good guy, except for he was like a really bad guy for a while. He's, you know, Cyclops' brother. It runs in the Summers family to be a bad guy for a while. Wild Child is like,
on the
I think
to-do list of every Summers family.
Yeah, every Summers child has a path that they have to take. Eventually, they will be the villain.
I'm bored. I can't think of anything to do. Have you tried being a bad guy?
Exactly. So I don't know, something about this book makes it really work, and I really love the first 2 issues. There's twists and turns left and right that I feel like totally makes sense, and I really like that. So looking forward to it. I was going to pick X Factor, but I didn't think I wanted to go on a tirade about how clunky I thought the first issue was again. So yeah, but anyways, that's my pick for this week. We're running long. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to revisit a topic that we talked about almost 100 episodes ago. So we'll be back in just a second. For our show this week, we are revisiting an episode topic that we did way back on episode 170. It's almost 100 episodes ago. That's almost 2 years ago, strangely enough. But we're going to be talking about comic books that you would send to your younger camping self. Someone that, you would make up a care package and mail it to yourself back when you were like 10, 11, 12, 13 at camp. Whether that's Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, computer camp, I don't know, something where you basically are sleepaway camp for a week or so, and you just need something to read on those boring days out in the sun or at night or something, or if it's raining at camp. So Nick, Kate, and I have come up with a list of things that we would probably send to our younger selves. So let's just dive into it. A lot of these books are trying to aim for maybe all ages, but who knows? You have an edgy 12-year-old self. Maybe that's what you wanted to send them. So Kate, let's start with one of your picks. What's one of the first books you could grab from today and mail it to your younger self?
I think Lumberjanes is like the immediate obvious pick that comes to mind because it is about girls at basically Girl Scout camp having fun and being awesome and it being okay to be different and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This is the book by Noelle Stevenson, Shannon Waters, Grace Ellis, and Brooke Allen. I think that would be cool to read as a kid. So many books that are out now, I'm like, man, I wish my younger confused self had this about it.
Right.
Everyone else is weird too, and everyone else is worried what other people think too, and oh, by the way, it's okay to be gay and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I think that one is a lot of fun and could be easily passed around at camp. In the same vein by Noelle Stevenson, Nimona, I think would be a lot of fun, and I saw that was on your list too, Mike.
Yeah, Nimona is definitely one of those books that I appreciate now, and I also think that the younger me would be like, oh, this is kind of funny. Like, it's really goofy that this person wants to be a villain, and like it's such a switch on like the typical type of story that, I think that I would have appreciated as a kid to be like, yeah, this is kind of weird and niche, and like no one wants to be the bad guy except for these two. And like I think that it would have been a book that probably would have stayed in my head for a really long time. Like, I don't know if you guys had this when you were little or younger, but like you read a book and there are just pieces of it that really get locked into your head. And for some reason, even 15, 20 years later, you kind of come back to it and reflect on it and be like, this is something that maybe defined some of the stuff that I did as I got older, or it was a story that I kept coming back to as being, this is so unique. And I think that if I read Nimona when I was like 11 or 12, this would be one of those books. And it's something that I want to give to like every younger reader who's out there to be like, look at this alternate take on like a fantasy style story about dragons and castles and just being like a villain, but also not being a bad person. And because I think that's something that book explores really, really well.
Well, and it really gets to that thing that is so common in kids is you're treated badly, so you feel like a bad kid, and so you act like a bad kid, but actually you're not a bad kid, and that like that, and that's definitely one of the reasons that I think it'd be great for my younger self at that point. I also just think the fantasy elements are really attractive and appealing to younger, at least younger me would have been all about that. I mean, there's a character who can transform into a dragon?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Give me Well, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think the idea of transforming into a dragon was very attractive to me as a little kid too, so I totally get that. But yeah, I guess like Nick, what about you? What's on your list? Well, at least one of them.
Yeah, so like definitely one of them for me, and it's sort of like a blanket category, but like, I mean, outside of like me sending myself like 2 Greyhound tickets to come back home and the Child Protective Services number to call and report my parents for sending me to camp. How dare they?
No, Nick.
Hello, would you like to report something? Yeah, my parents sent me to camp. What the hell?
Oh, you were that camper. Oh my God. As a camp counselor, I know you now. I know that kid.
Yeah, well, you don't know because this kid made sure he never got sent to these places because, you know,
he acted out as a kid.
So like definitely like if we're talking like 13-year-old me, I kind of did the math on this, and this would have been like right before Star Wars Episode 1, and considering like Star Wars was the only, you know, like Nick White interest tunnel vision was Star Wars from like 92 to like 2004. This definitely would have been like still within those confines, and this was definitely when I was like going to the middle school library at school, printing up every single page of the Star Wars Episode 1 website and putting it into a binder so I could have access to the website offline when I went home and I could read all of it.
Oh my gosh, we are learning things about Nick today, people.
My point is,
no, this is exactly, if someone's like, could you like just like, it's not really a prediction because it's the past, but could you like just tell me about Nick as a child? I'll be like, well, he hasn't told me, but I can tell you Nick as a child.
Yeah. Like, so I guess what I'm saying is like, I was clearly still into Star Wars at this point. Yes. And so if I was giving myself books back then, I think it would be easy to say like, send back the Marvel stuff.
Sure.
The 2015 onwards Marvel stuff. But knowing me at the time, like I would have been like, nah, man, I want that weird shit. So we're definitely talking like Dark Horse Star Wars. Especially
like the end of Dark Horse having the licensed stuff, which was really bizarre.
Oh, no, I'm not even talking that. Like, I'm talking like years before that when Marvel totally forgot that they had even given away the license to Star Wars. Like I'm talking back when basically like the editorial oversight was more or less like Lucas more or less would call Dark Horse and be like, hey, are you still making Star Wars comics? Oh, you are? All right, cool, bye. And like that was it. Like that was it. That was how much they paid attention. I mean, researching this episode last night, I located on Comixology Unlimited Shadows of the Empire #5, which I had a print copy of when I was a kid, and I read this thing to death, and it was one of those terrifying moments where like you reconnect with something that you read like 400 times as a kid. You haven't seen it in probably over 20 years, and yet like every panel, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember this. Oh my gosh, I remember this. Oh my gosh, I remember this. And I love that stuff. I love that stuff so much. I think I would have absolutely adored it as a kid, especially because, you know, this was still Legends continuity and whatnot. So it's sort of all connected with everything I knew. So definitely mid-90s Dark Horse comics would have been the best. Absolutely the best.
So you're basically just sending comics to yourself that existed at the time you were at camp.
Basically existed at the time, but I neither had the money or the connections to access them at that point. Yes, exactly.
I see. Thank you, future self, for having the money to buy these comics for me.
I mean, like, this was back in the day when I got comics was like when I got sick, and my dad was like, well, I better go get the ginger ale, from the store, and here's the comic rack. And so, I got that, and I got the Droids comic that Anthony Daniels apparently co-wrote, which if he did, I would definitely disavow that. But books like that for sure.
Gotcha. I mean, in that same vein, then, I mean, I'm looking at books like, I was like, I really want to send something to myself that would be like transformative and it would make my mind richer. But like, that's
don't try
absolutely...
this.
No, this is not the kind of stuff. I mean, like I said, I think in the last one, I wanted to send back Super Mutant Magic Academy because, like, I think that's also kind of like a Nimona, like, haha, the entire time. Like, it's very sarcastic.
You're just going to send back yourself like Watchmen and like Batman Year One. And...
No. So, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think I want to send anything that's going to be like, let's teach Mike about this thing. Instead, I would send myself One Punch Man, right? Like, One Punch Man Volume 1 is like pedal to the metal, like action in your face, explosions with some stupid gag humor that I think I would have, as a 12 or 13-year-old, found really, really funny. I'm sure that I would have been confused about reading right to left, but after I got over that hump, I think I would have been like, this is just dudes having like big muscles and fighting each other, and then like everyone has superpowers and blah blah. I would have been all about like the Hero Association and all the stuff that they do. I mean, that comic, that manga is like super just action packed. It's everything that I think I would want as a kid. Just reading, I realize that it's a little bit more mature than probably what a 13-year-old should be reading. But then again, at the time, I thought I was pretty cool, and I was watching R-rated movies and getting scared by them. So
I watched Terminator 2, Mom. That means you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I would go to my aunt and uncle's house, and I would sit down and I'd watch like action movies from the 90s that I had no right to watch, like movies that were definitely rated R.
Yeah,
like there's what's the movie with Gina Davis where she like loses all of her memory and then becomes like a super assassin? Do you guys know what movie I'm talking about?
Was that A League of Their Own?
No, that's definitely not it.
Not A League of Her Own. Oh no. But no,
sorry, it was a different Gina Davis movie, I guess.
No, I mean, I would definitely want to read something like One Punch Man that's a little bit older than my age range, but at the same time,
like Femme Nikita, Mike?
No, I don't think that's what it is either. I'm trying to find it, but like either way, it's like it would still be just like something that I think would be like advanced for me, but at the same time, it would be something that I really, really like. I don't know. Somebody else talk about something else. I'm looking up this stupid movie.
So in my much more wholesome childhood, this One Summer is also an incredible book by Mariko and Jillian Tamaki.
Yes.
And I mean, this one won the Caldecott honor. It's a Prince honor book. It won the Eisner. Like, this book is incredible, and it's also very much the kind of book that I really enjoyed when I was at that 12 kind of age range, 11, 12. And this book is about these friends who meet up in the summer. Every summer their parents are at the same place, and like last summer they were kids, but this summer they're kind of at that tipping point where things are kind of they notice parents fighting and things with older teenagers in town and stuff like that. And they're kind of evolving into just kind of the adolescence and everything that goes with that. And that's a really hard time. And I think having a book like this to kind of guide you through would have been, I would have just loved the story. It's just so well done. But also it gets to that thing of like, okay, everyone's weird, everyone's confused, and no one knows how to do, everyone's awkward in adolescence. It's not just you. And everyone's family has their own issues and stuff. So I think I would have really liked it back then. And again, did it come to mind because it has summer in the title? Yeah, maybe, Mike. Maybe it did.
No.
But like, it's still a good recommendation.
I'm not judging you for that. I
think I heard it through the waves, but
no. So it's interesting that you say that because I really liked this One Summer. Like, I really, really enjoyed that book. My My only questioning here is this. So this One Summer is a fantastic film to read now as in my 30s, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even probably in my 20s. I'd be like, yeah, remember I was a teenager and it was kind of awkward. I really liked that book goes through making you watch characters evolve through the story, and like you see them kind of reflect based on things that they heard other people say. Like that to me was like hurt me in the chest when I read that, some of those moments in the book. My question is that something that's only great to read because you are older and you can reflect back on your time as a kid when that happened to you? And would your younger self, or would someone who's in that age range right now appreciate that and understand what's happening in the story? That's my only concern, because I think,
I would have read it in a very different way back then.
That's what I mean.
Age range for this is 12 to 18 officially, like if you check at the publisher what the publisher thinks they're marketing it to. So because I did look at that. It is classified as YA, but I think you're right in that you get something very different out of it by reading it as an adult. Yeah. And there's a lot more subtext and stuff like that you pick up. But would I have still really liked it when I was 11 or 12? Yeah, I think I would have.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I'm not trying to devalue your appreciation of the book. Like, even if you were to say like my younger self would like it, because I think that
but you're right. You get something different.
Yeah, and I think you get something. But I also think that reading it as a younger kid, you'd go, oh, you'd be aware of some of that stuff maybe, or you would relate to it a lot more than I think you would reading it now. So I think there's definitely merit in it. I just am like, I got to call that out, because I think like part of that is just nostalgia when I read it. Like I've been to those kinds of beach houses. I've been to those kinds of like movie stores. It's the only store in town kind of thing. Right. And as an adult, I've seen those fucking teenagers hanging out outside. And what are they doing? Yeah. It's too late. They shouldn't be at this place. They don't have any money.
Loitering should be a felony.
I'm not.
Oh my God.
I'm not that kind of curmudgeon, at least not yet. But yeah, I looked up the movie that I was talking about, by the way. It's called The Long Kiss Goodnight. It's got Sam Jackson in it and Gina Davis, and boy, oh boy, I was far too young to have watched that movie. I just want to say that. It came out in 1996, and I definitely saw it like in 96, 97, maybe 98. So I would have been like anywhere between 8 and 10 years old when I saw that. So like, have some supervision, I guess. I don't know. But let's talk about another book. Nick, what else did you have on your list? Because I don't want to go into the irresponsibilities of my extended family.
No, I feel like that's going to be a Patreon episode for sure. It's going to be your childhood.
What mistakes did your family make? The Patreon bonus series.
Oh, man. Like another one for me would probably have to be like Future Quest by Jeff Parker and Doc Shaner. Okay. This was the book they did at DC a few years ago. Yeah, they did start rotating artists at a certain point, but I think even though Doc Shaner came off the book, I think you had like Steve Rude, I think, did a couple issues, and he, also has kind of a clean retro-esque style like Shaner, so it wasn't a problem. So yeah, this was Jeff Parker and Doc Shaner. It was basically a smashing together of a lot of their Hanna-Barbera properties, I believe. Mm-hmm. So it was, what did you have in there? You had like Johnny Quest.
Space Ghost,
absolutely. There were definitely some...
Man.
Who?
I'm basically like listing all the characters that I know at one point also had Adult Swim TV shows.
Right. Basically, yeah, it was Space Ghost and Johnny Quest and I can't remember the name of those two kids who had like the monkey sidekick and Harvey
Wonder Twins?
Harvey Birdman.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking. Not Hawkman, Harvey Birdman.
Yeah. So and the guy who looked like He-Man but wasn't He-Man, and the Herculoids, is that it? I think. Anyway,
oh brother, I don't know. We're digging way too deep now. I have no idea.
Really deep now. Yeah. So I had a lot of fun with that book. It was, sort of low risk, a lot of fun, super clean, engaging art. And I think I would have liked it, even though, interestingly enough, at the time I read it, and certainly it wouldn't have been true of me as a younger kid either, because of how chronology works. I really wasn't familiar with most of these characters at all. But I still really enjoyed it, and I think this was definitely something I picked up just because the simple fact that when Doc Shaner says he's going to do a monthly book, you just pick up the book. That's it. Like,
right.
it doesn't matter what it is.
But younger you would have had no idea.
I would have had no fucking clue what was going on. I probably would have known who Johnny Quest was, and that probably would have been the end of it. But, you know, and this is something we've talked about before. Like, when you're a kid, like, you don't read the first 5 pages of a comic that you've randomly picked up and go, well, you know, I don't understand the greater context of this book, and I feel like I feel like I've been dropped in the middle of this, and I feel like I'm not going to get a thorough appreciation for what's going on here because of it. So I bid you adieu, right? You're just, as a kid, you're like, I don't, fuck it. Like, I'm going to read this 92 more times, so I'll figure it out.
Right. I'll make up my own story as to how this all came together.
Right. And that's like the beautiful part about reading comics as a kid is it's like you don't have those stupid hangups of like, am I going to fully appreciate this? It's like, who cares? So yeah, definitely Future Quest. And in the exact same vein, with the exact same team, their work on Flash Gordon from 2014. Same thing. Retro-ish adventure / pulpy sci-fi, you know, just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think that would be like those are the types of stories that are, you know, they're old characters, and so they have like these classic stories to build off of. And I'm sure that, you know, Jeff Parker and Doc Shaner, Evan Shaner, you know, took twists in the story to make them more relevant to the modern times. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, it would still probably be just as entertaining. Like, my gauge for a lot of this at this point, you know, like from what we're doing now compared to what we did like 2 years ago, is comics that I could just give to my 10-year-old nephew. Like, if I could give these to him safely, I think that we're probably safe, which is why I should have put Cucumber Quest on here, because that book is wonderful.
What?
It's called Cucumber Quest. Okay. It is one of the most magical books you can ever read, and it's about a brother and sister, and they're trying to stop the world from ending because there's an evil, like, you know, big bad evil person, and all of the characters are super lovable. And my nephew, he devoured the first 4 graphic novels, and every time I talk to him, he's asking me for the next one, and I'm like, I don't know, man, it's a webcomic and they only get collected so often, dude.
I just can't wait to find out like that, like, this is a book he discovered on his own, and he was so happy to like share comics with you, and he just gave it to you, and you're like, man, this is for babies, and you just like threw
No. It was the other way around. Someone turned me onto this, and I read it and I really liked it, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna buy all of these for him, and he loves them to death. Itty Bitty Hellboy was also another one that he liked, but I think it was because he got to say the H word. But no, another book that I actually had on my list, I don't know why I didn't put Cucumber Quest on here, but I had the Adventure Zone, Volume 1, the Here There Be Gerblins, and I mean, I'll put all of my issues with the Adventure Zone podcast aside for this, because their story that they ultimately put together is very fun, and it's lighthearted and goofy. I don't necessarily think it's, again, a book that's aimed at a super younger audience, but I think that there's enough to be enjoyed by somebody like a kid that would just want to read a goofy fantasy story. And like, you don't need to know anything about D&D. You just need to kind of see that there's like a narrator going on that is kind of playing into the story a little bit in a meta way. And I think that a younger reader would probably enjoy it and think that it's really goofy and off the cuff. Again, just like Nimona, where there's kind of like this fantasy story about, you know, wizards and they're saving things, but also there's like a human being that's in the regular world talking to these characters, would be really funny. And I think that would like have probably like struck something in my brain to be like, you can tell stories like this, you can have like this, and I probably wouldn't know the verbiage for it, but you can, exactly, like, is this allowed in a fictional story where you have a person that exists outside of the story interacting with the story and making changes within the story as it's happening? I think would have been groundbreaking for me as a little kid. And again, this is why I have a whole other rant about why I think like D&D is the most fun you can ever have when you're playing with someone who's never played it before, who's very young, who doesn't have all of these tropes and things built into their mind, and instead they're just like, I want to be a sword wielding orc who, you know, flies on the back of a cow. Like, sure, let's do that. Like, let's fucking have fun with it. And I think that's exactly what the Adventure Zone does for the fantasy genre in a lot of ways, like within the narrative of D&D and stuff. But I think reading it as a younger kid, I probably would have totally fallen in love with it. Plus the art style is fantastic. Like, Carrie Peach's art is to die for, and everybody should take a look at it. And that book's really fun, and there's 3 volumes out, but if I could only send one, I just send the first one so you can get to know the characters and everything. I don't know if you guys have checked that out at all, but it's fun stuff. It is fun stuff. But Kate, what else do you have on your list?
The Prince and the Dressmaker, I just read like 2 days ago by Jen Wang, and it is so perfect and so sweet, and so I loved it so much. And I also think it would have been a good one for me to read when I was younger. I think it would have been a good one for everyone to read in the 90s when they were young, and calling boys girls if they were doing something they didn't like, because girls is a derogatory term. And all that bullshit that we all just accepted as like a thing back then. So the art is so well done. The color work is incredible. Everything is just chef kiss. So good. Like, it's one of those OGNs that, like, once you finish it, and I did inhale this in one sitting, and then you finish it and you're like, well, shit, whatever I read next isn't gonna be as good. And so, like, what am I supposed to do? So I think it would have been perfect for like a rainy day at camp kind of read.
This is one of those books, when I finished it, was like, I don't understand how this isn't a Disney animated film. Like the entire thing from beginning to end feels like a Disney film. And I realized I think that's like not really appreciating the comic, but the reason I say that is because it has that sense of whimsy. It has that sense of like fantasy and excitement and like positivity that you would expect out of a Disney movie. And there are like there's a dark side to the book that is kind of there, that, you know, the prince is hiding who they actually are. But like, man, like from beginning to end, you can feel like the fantasy of this story come to life, and it fills you with the excitement that I think you get out of like some of those older Disney movies, you know, for all their problems and stuff that they have. This book, like from beginning to end, just has that wholesome feel to it. And by no means is it like pushing anything on you. It is just accepting the story as it is. And it's like, you think that the idea of like the prince hiding who they are is like this derogatory thing, and that it's gonna be, oh, I can't believe that you wear dresses. It's not even about that. It's that like the prince has to be the prince who has to like rule this country, but they also have this other side to them that they don't show anybody, because it's not who everyone expects them to be. And I just, that book is so fucking good. It's like it's one of the best comics I've ever read, hands down. It's like, Jen Wang, just give me more.
Well, and part of the reason it reads like a Disney movie is because the artwork is such that the visual flow of it is very similar to that. Like, there's a very cinematic feel to it, in the same way that Tilly Walden's books visually flow and have movement in them so well. Just the panel design as such, and the like the angles and the just. I wish that all comics had that, honestly. It's just so much smoother reading experience. I had Tilly Walden books on my list too, but for older campers, I guess.
These are for the camp counselors.
Well, no. I mean, like, I still did camping stuff when I was a teenager. But like Spinning and On a Sunbeam both are about kids going through that whole adolescence phase of trying to figure out who they are and what they want, and kind of found family aspects, which I think goes well with camp. That I definitely think both of these books would have been okay. So disclaimer, I'm like a third of the way through Spinning. I have not finished it, but so far, both of these books I think would have been appropriate for like as a 13 or 14-year-old. And I think I would have loved.
I think Spinning would have been a book that I would have read at like 14 or 15 and been like, holy shit. Like, I think it would have floored me. I think it would have made me think that Tilly Walden is so fucking cool for telling this story of like everyday life, that I wouldn't have known what to do with it. I would have devoured everything that she did, because at this point when she was writing Spinning, but like at this point, if I was 15 reading Spinning, like she's only a handful of years older than me, right? Like, that to me would have fucking destroyed my life, because I would have quit computers and tried to be a comic book writer. Like, and I mean, and I say destroy, I mean like it would have taken me in a radically different direction. But like, that's the thing about that book, is it's so raw, and she's such a talented creator at such a young age. It's mind blowing. And I think like I would have read the afterword, and I would have been like, she's only how old? I can do this. I'm totally with you on that. I think it's definitely not something for like 12-year-old me. I think it would have been like 14, 15, 16-year-old me. But yeah, I definitely, I think that should be on the list here. Nick, what about you? What's one more you've got in your bag?
Sure. I would have to say, I think, I mean, part of me was tempted to say like the 2012 reboot of like Ninja Turtles, but like Ninja Turtles 1999 was basically, I think, probably at a point when they were like probably totally off everyone's radar. So I don't think you could have gotten me to get into that at all at that point. But I think Atomic Robo would have been a pretty safe bet. This is by writer Brian Clevenger, artist Scott Wagner. I've often called this book kind of like the slightly more YA version of Hellboy. It's basically Hellboy if you want to sleep at night. Because
no eldritch horrors,
right? Because you've got this like really interesting protagonist who, you know, has these really unique abilities, and he seems to sort of be immortal or doesn't age. And so you have this character that exists in all of these different periods of time, right? And kind of interacts with different elements of history, some of which are kind of like real, some of which are kind of speculative or conspiracy theory oriented. So like I said, it's basically Hellboy, except like you might actually be able to go to bed when you finish it, which is why I would be sending this and not Hellboy. In addition to like you said earlier, like I probably wouldn't feel comfortable being like, hey, check out this book with hell in the title. So so I think this would have been a pretty good pick for someone who had an overactive imagination and really didn't need any encouragement in terms of like struggling to get to bed at night. So like this would be big. On the same vein, I would also, just to throw in one Valiant book, I would say Matt Kint's Rye. I think it's a smart, fun book, but I think back then I would have been like, oh my God, this book is like the smartest thing ever. This art is the craziest art ever. I think I would have absolutely been floored by it. And of course it would be science fiction. So like, how could I say no to that? So
right. I mean, I think Rye would almost be, I think, a bit too much, but I also would have coming close to like the age where I was like, The Matrix is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was 1990. Like, I mean, it was 99 for me. So yeah, Matrix would have been, yeah.
I'm thinking like, 99 would have been like 11, 12 ish. And like, I think I would have fallen hard for a book like that. I totally get it. I guess I don't know. I had Nimona. That was all that I had on my list. Was there anything else you guys wanted to mention before we wrap up here? Any other books, or do we want to reflect even more on our past as children reading comics?
What's the one X-Men book, Mike, that you think above all that you would have been like,
that's a tough one.
I would have sent myself, what is it? God Loves Man Kill.
God Loves Man Kill.
Nice try. Don't even lie.
It's interesting because I think that I would have read God Loves Man Kills and not gotten it for another 10 years. Just like, I think I would have read it and been like, it's about the X-Men, and the X-Men, you should accept people. Like, I think I would have gotten the core message, but I don't think that I would have understood what the book was trying to say. If that makes any sense, right? Like the idea that you should accept mutants, like they're regular people, they just have powers. But I don't think I would have gotten the idea of like registering them and like the hatred and bigotry that comes along with the book. I wouldn't have gotten that till later when I was in like high school reading about those types of things that happened in the United States. If I had to pick an X-Men book, I'm hard pressed to say like anything, because there's so many books that are just like, they're all just heavy. X-Men books are heavy. Maybe I would have picked like the Mr. and Mrs. X book, which is Rogue and Gambling go to counseling, and like they also are in love, and like that was my thing even as a kid. Like I loved Rogue and Gambit, so like I would have been all on board for that. Okay. So maybe that would have been one. I want to say X-Men, the worst X-Man ever, but I also think the only reason I really appreciate that book is because of the reflection on like the X-Men line as a series. But I don't know, I maybe would have liked it because the book is about being an outcast and being the one mutant who has a power you can't use.
Do you think Grand Design would have been too much for you as a kid? Probably.
Yes. Yeah. Grand Design would have been like reading a textbook, man. It still is like reading a textbook. Mom and
Dad sent me this book. Yeah. It said comics. What is this?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I would have read that as like a younger kid and be like, I know everything there is to know about the X-Men now.
Right. That's the book that you would have like waited until there was like a playground discussion about X-Men and somebody says something and you just like pull this book out from like under like who knows where and you're like, well, actually.
Yeah, I would be the kid that had like the rolled up copy in my back pocket. It'd be like, well, if we turn to page 33, actually, I don't think I was that
actually,
kid.
Colossus doesn't have those powers.
Yeah, something like that. But no, I mean, I think the Mr. and Mrs. X would have been good. It's very sexual, so I don't know, maybe not. But who knows?
But then again, you were watching that one Gina date.
Again, I watched The Long Kiss Goodnight, so you know what? I could handle anything. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. That's all that I have. Yeah, Kate, did you have? I think Kate, you have one more that I just want to gush about for a second.
Check, please. So this would definitely I would not send except to like the older teen camper me, but we didn't talk about how old we were talking. The big reason, because while it's great in some ways, there are some things that are kind of accepted or romanticized that I wouldn't want to, like, I'd want to be old enough to know that like that's not great. So because there's like hazing and stuff that's this is just good fun in this frat. But overall, Check Please is so much fun and so sweet. And again, it's that whole figuring yourself out, found family of like trying to fit in with this new group. It's about a boy who goes off to be on a hockey team at college and kind of trying to fit in with the guys while also being gay and not being out yet. And I don't know. I'm on volume 2 now. I love it. I'm like purposefully not inhaling this one because I read volume 1 in like a sitting. And so volume 2, I'm like reading a little bit of, because when I'm all out of these feel good OGNs for the end of my day so that I can sleep, what am I going to do? Got to make them last until a vaccine.
What you got to do is you got to wait. You got to go back and reread it on the website where there's animated GIFs and stuff built into it.
Oh my God.
That's what you got to do.
I will actually do that for sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But okay. Well, I think that covers about everything. Nick, you had the 6th gun on here and I refuse to talk about it.
Okay. Wow.
Just because I think that's too serious. It's too serious.
Okay.
Also, I don't know enough about it to speak to it, but so I refuse to talk about it. But this has been a really fun discussion. I'm glad that we got to sit down and look back at some books that just make us feel good and are fun to look into, and imagine what we would have been like if we had read comics as younger kids, or read these comics in specific as younger kids. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, putting together a list and reading some feel good books. So thank you so much. But yeah, you can find us all on the internet. You can find Nick at Death Star Plans. You can follow me at Mike Rapin. You can follow the show at IRCB Podcast, where I try to post things, and on our Instagram, where we sometimes do sticker giveaways. So if you're not following us, you better get on that so you can get some free stickers.
This show and our many subscriber-only episodes are powered by fans like you on Patreon. Join now at patreon.com/IRCB Podcast. If you haven't already, please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can join us on Discord at ircbpodcast.com/Discord, and make sure to tell a friend or two about the show.
Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all the music for our show. Xander is a really cool guy, really fun person to be around, and just a great person to talk to. He also edits the show. I want to say thank you to Kate and Nick for being on this episode with me. Thank you to everyone out there who listens to the show, subscribes, rates, reviews, hangs out with us on Discord, comes to the book club. It's really, really fun to do that every other week. And yeah, thank you to everyone out there just in general. And thank you to Xander, because he's great. Until next time, though, comics are good, and so are you. Absolutely. Nick, what about you? What are you excited for this week?
Actually, can you give me like 20 seconds? There's a really big spider I want to kill.
Go for it.
Because it's right over my bed. And I want to go to bed tonight. So just give me 20 seconds. Let me kill it, and I will be right back. Assuming I don't screw up, but I'm pretty good at this.
Yikes. I moved an exercise machine into my apartment that my aunt found on the side of a road, And she said she cleaned it off before she brought it in, but I found like multiple spiders in my apartment since moving it in yesterday. So I'm real confident it was covered in spiders.
Get that raid.
Yep. They've been like daddy long legs, so it's not as terrifying as
I was gonna say, as long as it's not like those big fucking, what are they called? The hunter spiders or something like that. We had one of those.
Wolf spiders?
Yeah, wolf spiders, man. We had one of those.
Yeah, those things hurt like hell when they bite you.
We had one of those, a monster one living in our trailer shed when we lived back in the trailer park. And like, we had stuff in the shed that we needed to get out, like the lawnmower and like the moped that I had.
You gotta set that shit on
and
fire
like,
and walk
honestly,
away.
that you would walk in there and you would see that thing, like it would somehow find its way to meet your eye line, and it's just like, nope, I'm never going in there ever again.
No, thank you, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had like dreams of setting that shed on fire just because I didn't know what to do with it.
What you need to do. Yuck.
I mean,
Yuck.
you know, at least in New York, I'm sure there are spiders here, but I never see them. But we have to deal with, you know, roaches and sometimes bed bugs. So I guess I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. Roaches aren't fun.
Yeah.
They're hard
Okay.
to get rid of.
Nick, you're all good? Okay.
Yeah, all good. All good. I appreciate the listeners' patience.
Xander's going to cut all of this out. Don't worry.
I stringently adhere to Eminem's advice when he said, you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. Yeah. This opportunity only comes once in a lifetime or whatever. Because basically you missed the spider and then you have to go find it, and that takes forever. But he's dead, so that's good.
Wait, give me a couple seconds break. Yes.
Give you a break and then cut into my book? Absolutely, sure.
Yeah,
no problem. Will do. So for me this week, my pick has definitely got to be...